Welcome to day 3 of the 10-day chess challenge. We are going to start with some calculation exercises. In this position, it's white's turn to move. Use your calculation process and see if you can find a tactic here for white. Pause the video to think about it. Okay, so the first step was to calculate all our opponent's threats. And in this position, it doesn't seem that black has any serious threats against us. So that gives us liberty to go on to the next step, which is to identify all the targets. Okay, so remember, a target is a piece or a pawn that you can attack or that you are already attacking. So this rook we are already attacking with the queen, the knight's already under attack. Can we attack the queen? I don't really see a way to attack the queen at the moment. We can't also, no way to attack the rook either, so we have to focus on these two targets. Right, so next we look at motives, and a motive you can immediately see here is this queen is protecting both the knight and the rook. Okay, so this we call overloading. The piece is working too hard, it's protecting too many things at the same time. And when a piece is overloaded, you can often use a deflection tactic. So let's quickly calculate, see if there's any way to exploit this overloaded queen. There aren't any checks in the position, so we look at all the captures and we see that this move wins a knight, because if the queen captures us, the rook will become unprotected and we get the rook. When you visualize this move, you also had to keep in mind at the end of this tactic whether your king would still be safe if black played this queen check. But we see it is still safe. White can easily just move out of check, or you can even block the check with the knight or bishop or even the queen. Okay, so let's go on to the second exercise. Okay, black's turn to move here. Use your calculation process and see if you can find the tactic. You can pause the video to think about it. Okay, so the first thing we do is we have to find our opponent's threats, and our opponent has a very obvious threat here against us. He can capture one of our rooks. So we have to keep that in mind. Any other threats? White can't check us or capture us in any other way, so there aren't any other threats that we have to be concerned about. Okay, motives and targets. About the only two targets that I immediately notice in this position is the bishop, that's undefended, and maybe this pawn and the king, because it's on the same diagonal as the rook. So we have to keep that in mind. A motive that we notice here is with this bishop covering the squares next to the king like this, there's a well-known checkmate pattern that comes into play. And we can actually find the tactic either if we know the pattern, or alternatively if we just calculate all the checks. For example, here's the first check move, and after the opponent recaptures us, here's another check move, and this check move is actually checkmate because the king is cut off from the bishop. This is a well-known tactical motive or checkmate pattern, and it shows you that when you know your checkmate patterns quite well, then it also helps you find tactics. Alright, so in this position also you didn't even have to complete the whole tactical calculation process, because by just looking at the motives we could already find this tactic. Okay, so let's go on to the third and last calculation exercise for today. Okay, here it's black's turn to move. Use your calculation technique and see if you can find a tactic here for black. Pause the video to think about it. Okay, so we always start the calculation process by finding our opponent's threats, and it seems that white doesn't have any serious threats against us, so we can go on to the next step to identify all the possible targets and motives. Okay, so this knight must be a target. We're already attacking it. This knight must be a target because we can easily attack it. Okay, we can't really attack the rook because if you play the bishop there, white can easily just block by pushing up the pawn. So I don't see the rook being a target. So these are the only two targets that we have to work with at the moment. And if we look for some motives, then we can see that we are threatening to capture this knight with the bishop, but the problem is it's protected by this knight. And the motive that comes into play here is that we want to attack the defender. So we can just consider this move, which is actually the solution move, since this knight has to move away. And if it moves away, then we can capture that knight. As a matter of fact, this knight probably won't move away. White might consider something like capturing your bishop. At least he gets a bishop for the rook. And then maybe he can move the knight away on the next move. And black would have won material in the process. Okay, so this was another example where, once again, you didn't have to calculate much checks or captures because the motive already revealed the solution to you. Alright, so those were the tactical exercises for today, and I'm going to give you 2 evaluation exercises in the video below. I'll see you there.